How's it going, folks? CR here, and I'd like to address a bit of rhetoric that seems to be getting used more and more as the gun control debate goes on, though I know it's been used for quite some time. And this is the whole, well, the NRA is buying Congress with blood money. I just got to say off the top first that whenever I hear somebody use that rhetoric, it reminds me of a preschooler or a kindergartner who's trying to rationalize their way out of trouble. Oh, well, I wanted to get an A, I tried really, really hard, but that teacher just doesn't like me, and the teacher just gives me bad grades. That's what I'm kind of reminded of whenever I hear them use that rhetoric. Now, there are several reasons why the gun controllers don't get what they want at their every fucking demand. And this video is not about that, nor is this about my criticisms over the NRA, and I do have certain criticisms of the NRA, not in the way the gun controllers like, though. But last, I do want to break this whole NRA blood money rhetoric down and explain to you why this is not true. And I'd like to start off by following the money. Well, first off, you have to ask yourself, if the NRA has all this money, where does it come from? But before we get into this, I also want to point out that the gun controllers never seem to have a problem when people like Michael Bloomberg donate millions of dollars. They didn't have a problem with Bill Gates, for some reason, donating $1 million to a gun control initiative in Washington State. But all of a sudden they have a problem with the NRA donating money to campaigns for elections. Why would that be? And you know, with that one, they do something called telegraphing, which, by the way, if you don't understand what telegraphing is where they send you a message without actually saying what that message is, either consciously or unconsciously, usually unconsciously. And that message is, well, it's okay for us to do it, just not your side. But let's address where this money comes from. The NRA has to get it from somewhere. Now, the gun controllers will say, well, the gun industry gives them money. Okay, so regardless of whether or not that's true, you have to think where the gun industry gets that money. Oh, well, they get that money from selling a product to people who want to buy that product. So obviously there are a certain number of people that enjoy the freedom to buy that product that the gun lobby, or the gun manufacturers and the gun industry is selling in the first place. Also, it's worth noting that groups like Midway and Brunel's have options to donate to the NRA when you go onto their website and say purchase some firearm accessories or some ammunition. And it's not too far-fetched to believe that when you're going to buy 1,000 rounds of ammunition and you see the option to pop up to donate money to a group that you perceive to be fighting for your legal ability to continue to do that, that it may very well cross your mind to at least donate some money to them. Also, the NRA is 5 million members strong. That's actually quite a few people that can donate a very small amount of money and yet can collectively, in aggregate, be able to donate a lot of money to the NRA. Now, of course, the gun controllers will say, well, they just have 5 million members. Well, okay, how many members does Moms Demand Action have? How many members does Everytown have? Guarantee you it's a lot less than the NRA. by a long shot. And while we're on the topic of membership, and where the lines are drawn, the gun controllers will often sit there and use the NRA's 5 million members and say, well, the rest of the country, however, is really for us. And yet they don't have the same membership the NRA does. And moreover, one of the other talking points that they will use is that, well, only 20% of Americans own guns, and 3% of those Americans have half the guns. Those are the super owners. But yet 90% of Americans support our agenda. Well, that's funny. You're telling me that 3% of Americans are just whipping the ever-living shit out of you people, and you people, the 90% in this country? You must be some inept motherfuckers right there. I gotta say. Alas, this talking point also is not true. The fact of the matter is that most people in this country who aren't invested in owning a certain number of firearms, certain types of firearms, most people don't really care either which way. The people that do care in this country generally tend to be more in favor of the freedom to keep and bear arms than to be against it. It's real easy to go up and ask a bunch of people on the street this simple question. Well, do you think we need to do anything better to prevent gun violence? Most people are going to say yes, even though they don't agree with what the gun controllers want. I mean, it's almost like saying, well, it is exactly like saying, don't you want to stop more rape? Don't you want less rape in this country? Well, unless you're absolutely insane, you're going to say, yes, I want less rape in this country. If there's something that we can do legitimately to prevent that problem, yes. Very few people would say no to something like that. So, with that being said, the gun controllers do have a way of asking certain questions and framing it so it puts out the perception that people agree with them when they really don't. So, on that note, why would the gun controllers go out of their way to sit there and make this claim? My best guess is that it has something to do with their narrative. And that's actually based on a lot of lies. There's an old story I was told in kindergarten. I was read to us in kindergarten. It was about somebody who had, lied, and they had to tell lie after lie to cover for that lie, and then they had to tell another set of lies to cover for each lie they told after that, and you know, the lies kept on building up. And their basic narrative is, oh, well, we just want reasonable gun laws. We're not trying to take your guns. All we want is something reasonable. We just don't want people getting harmed. And nobody who's in their right mind could ever disagree with us. Again, it's not true, but this is what they're saying. We just want common sense gun laws. And when their common sense gun laws, as they put it, don't pass, they have to then go on and explain why these common sense gun laws that 90% of the population agree with somehow didn't pass. And they can't come out and admit, or they refuse to come out and admit they were wrong, that one, their gun laws weren't common sense or reasonable or sensible or any other thing they advertised them out to be. And two, they have to come out and admit that they really don't have the support that they do. And three, they have to admit somewhere along the line that they weren't quite being honest with people. And another thing I think, and I'm almost pretty certain that they're telegraphing to us when they start using this NRA Blood Money and Stop the NRA, is that they really don't want opposition's voices to be heard. They really don't want to have that reasonable discussion. And I take this not just from their whole rhetoric of stop the NRA or kill the NRA or anything like that. I take it from a lot of their actions. I can't tell you how many gun controllers have blocked me on Twitter. The list is endless. I mean, shoot, Shannon Watts must have the largest block party on Twitter. I mean, she's blocked people who hadn't even tweeted her. I'm blocked by every account. CSGV, Shannon Watts, Mom's Demand. So there are a lot of them that claim that they want a reasonable discussion, an open discussion with the other side, but their actions just show something different. And moreover, when you're willing to lie, that shows me right there that you don't want to have an open, honest discussion on several levels. First, obviously, being, there's nothing honest about lying. But second, when you do lie to somebody, you're not really wanting to have a discussion. You just want to mislead them into supporting your agenda. If you really wanted to have a discussion with somebody, being honest is the best way to go about it. So, with that being said, I don't really think they want to have an open, honest discussion. I believe they want their voices heard, but not everyone else's. They say, well, we've been hearing from the NRA, and the NRA has been getting its way for quite some time now, for all this time now. Well, that's not exactly true either. If you look at all the firearms restrictions we have just at the federal level, that in and of itself is evidence alone that the NRA is just blocking all common sense gun legislation and stopping us from being heard is simply not true. The idea that they claim that the NRA just has a stranglehold on Congress and they're simply trying to break that stranglehold on Congress, well, that's simply not true either. It's much like when you hear Antifa talk about, well, we don't believe in blocking the freedom of speech of Milo Yiannopoulos, Ben Shapiro, or Richard Spencer. We just don't think they should have a platform. Yeah, they pretty much mean they want to block their freedom of speech. They just don't want to call it that. And this is the way a lot of these gun controllers want to do with the people on the side of gun rights. I'll disclose to you right now, I'm not an NRA member. I'm actually a little bit more on the gun rights side of things than the NRA is itself. So, with that being said, Congress is not only hearing from the NRA and its members, it's also hearing from other people, members of other organizations, other gun rights advocates that might not be members of any sort of gun rights advocacy group. So, to sit there and suggest that the NRA has a stranglehold and is just buying Congress off is simply false. If it was just those 5 million members and everybody else just didn't agree with the NRA and really wanted these common sense gun laws, and 90% of the population wanted these, well, you'd have a constitutional amendment tomorrow that said, that put these laws in the book. And yet we don't. Thank you all for watching. Y'all take it easy out there and have a great day.